The papers looked official, so until I read the deed. When I drove back to my mountain house, I expected silence, snow, and my father's old fireplace. Instead, smoke was rising from the chimney. A strange truck sat by my woodshed, and the HOA Karen's husband walked out wearing my dad's jacket. She said he was there for community safety. I knew right then something was buried under that lie. Stay with me because the deed changed everything. And if stories like this hit close to home, subscribe and ride along. The smoke was the first thing that made my foot ease off the gas. Not tire smoke, not fog. Chimney smoke, gray and steady, curling above the pine trees from the stone stack my father built with his own hands in 1987. I had not been to that mountain house in almost a year. Nobody had permission to be there. Nobody had a key except me. I stopped my pickup halfway around the last bend and stared through the windshield. Fresh tire tracks cut through the snow ahead of me. Wide ones. Recent. They climbed the private road I had watched my father grade every summer when I was a boy, then curved straight into my clearing like they belonged there. My stomach tightened before I even saw the house. Then the trees opened. The porch light was on. Smoke rose from the chimney. A dark blue pickup sat beside my woodshed with a ladder rack over the bed. My father's axe was stuck in the chopping block outside, and a neat stack of split pine leaned against the wall like somebody had been settling in for winter. I killed the engine. For a moment, the whole ridge went quiet, except for wind moving through the branches. That quiet used to calm me. That morning, it felt like a warning. My name is Caleb Mercer. I'm 49 years old, a former water rights investigator, and that house was the last thing my father left me besides a rusted Winchester, 2 boxes of maps, and a habit of reading every document twice. He built that place above Clearwater Lake because he hated being crowded. No streetlights, no tourists, no HOA. Just timber, stone, snow, and a road narrow enough to remind people they were entering somebody else's land. I stepped out of the truck and shut the door softly. The front curtain moved. Somebody was watching me from inside my own house. I walked toward the porch, boots crunching through snow, every step making my pulse hit harder. The original brass lock was gone. In its place sat a black keypad deadbolt drilled into the doorframe. New screws, new strike plate, clean work, too clean for a break-in. Before I reached the steps, the front door opened. A man I had never seen before stepped onto my porch, wearing my father's red flannel jacket. He was early 60s, broad through the shoulders, gray beard trimmed short, house slippers on his feet like Sunday morning had found him in his own kitchen. In his right hand was my father's brown ceramic coffee mug, the one with the chipped handle my mother kept trying to throw away. He looked at me like I was the one out of place. "Can I help you?" he asked. For 2 seconds, I could not speak. I stared at the jacket first, then the mug, then the warm yellow light spilling out behind him into the cold. "That's my house," I said. His face did not change much, just a small tightening around the eyes. Then a woman's voice came from inside. "Dean, don't engage." She walked into view behind him, smooth as a knife sliding from a drawer. Marla Whitcomb, president of Pine Hollow Estates, HOA. I knew her from letters I had thrown in a desk drawer and one tense meeting years ago when she tried to claim my lower fence line was a community visual boundary. She wore a cream sweater, gold earrings, and the kind of calm expression people use when they have already rehearsed a lie. "Caleb Mercer," she said. "You should have notified the board before arriving." The board. I looked past her into my living room. The old leather chair had been moved. My mother's framed lake photograph was gone from the mantel. There was a new rug on the floor, new curtains, and a row of labeled storage bins against the wall. My father's house looked staged, managed, occupied. I took one step up. Dean shifted in front of the doorway. "Move," I said. Marla raised one hand, not scared, not surprised, controlling the room from my porch. Dean has been maintaining the property for community safety, she said. This structure was classified as unattended after repeated non-compliance and winter hazard notices. I almost laughed, but it came out dry and ugly. Community safety? He's wearing my father's coat. Dean glanced down like he had forgotten it was on him. Marla's eyes never left mine. The home was deteriorating. Your absence created liability exposure for Pine Hollow residents below the ridge. This land is not Pine Hollow, I said. Her mouth formed a thin, patient smile. That's a complicated matter. No, I said. It's a recorded matter. For the first time, Dean looked at Marla. That tiny glance told me more than either of them meant to say. I climbed the second step. Snow slid off my boot onto the porch boards my father had cut himself. My hand was shaking, but my voice stayed low. I don't know what story you two told yourselves, but you are standing in my house. Marla stepped forward until she was beside Dean. She held a black folder against her chest. We expected this reaction, she said. Expected. That word hit harder than the smoke, harder than the lock, harder than the sight of Dean holding my father's mug. Marla did not look caught. She looked prepared. And standing there in the cold, with my dead father's house warm behind two people who had no right to breathe inside it, I realized this was not a misunderstanding. This was paperwork dressed up as ownership, and Marla Whitcomb had been waiting for me to come back. She held the black folder out like a judge handing down a sentence. You need to review this before you make another accusation, she said. I looked at the folder, then at Dean standing in my doorway with my father's jacket still on his shoulders. He had the sense to set the coffee mug on the small table beside the door, but he did not step outside. That bothered me. A man who knew he was trespassing would have backed away. Dean stayed planted like someone had told him he was protected. I took the folder. The first page was printed on Pine Hollow Estates letterhead. Bold title, Emergency Preservation Notice. Below that, my name, my parcel number, and my father's mountain address. It listed snow load concerns, chimney risk, exterior neglect, deadfall near access roads, unsecured structure, absentee ownership. The language was careful. Not exactly legal, but legal enough to scare someone who did not know better. I flipped to the next page. Fine notice. Then another. Then an inspection report. Then a board resolution authorizing temporary caretaker occupancy to preserve community-facing mountain property. At the bottom, Marla Whitcomb's signature sat in blue ink beside Dean Whitcomb's name. I looked up slowly. You signed your own husband into my house. Marla did not blink. The board authorized a qualified caretaker. The board being you? The board being the governing body responsible for Pine Hollow's safety and property values. My house is not Pine Hollow. She gave me that thin smile again. That is your interpretation. I stepped past Dean before he could block me. Caleb, Marla said sharply. I kept moving. Inside, the heat hit me first, then the smell. Not dust, not closed-up timber, not the cold cedar smell the place always carried after months alone. Bacon grease, laundry soap, aftershave. Someone had been living there, not checking pipes. The living room had been rearranged. My father's old chair sat near the fireplace, but a new cushion covered the torn leather seat. The elk antlers above the mantel were gone. My mother's framed photo of Clearwater Lake at sunrise was gone. On the wall beside the kitchen hung a laminated map I had never seen before. I walked toward it. Marla followed fast. Dean stayed near the door. The map showed the ridge, the lower subdivision, the lake trail, and several highlighted parcels in yellow. Mine was one of them. A Across the top, in clean printed letters, were the words, Pine Hollow Northern Improvement Concept. Near my house, written in red, was a smaller label, Phase 1 Ridge Acquisition. My chest went tight. What is this? Marla reached for the map. I caught her wrist before she touched it. Not hard, just enough to stop her. Her eyes flashed. Do not put your hands on me, she said. Then don't remove evidence from my wall. Dean stepped forward. You need to calm down. I turned on him. You're wearing a dead man's coat in his son's house. Don't tell me to calm down. That landed. Dean looked away. Marla recovered first. That map is an internal planning document. It has nothing to do with your current compliance status. My current compliance status, I repeated. I flipped through the folder again. Faster now. Every document built on the one before it. Notice of neglect. Failure to respond. Emergency concern. Community impact. Caretaker approval. Occupancy authorization. A ladder made of paper. Then I saw the dates. Some notices were more than 8 months old. Some claimed delivery confirmation. Some referenced emails I had never received. One stated I had failed to object within 30 days, allowing Pine Hollow to proceed under abandoned property intervention rules. I held that page up. Where did you send these? Marla's face changed just slightly. Not enough for most people to catch. Enough for me. To the contact information on file. What file? The association file. I never gave you a file. She folded her hands. Your father's property created obligations whether you participated or not. The words were smooth. The meaning was filthy. I looked around the room again. New keypad lock. New boots by the kitchen door. Dean's jacket on a chair. A stack of mail on the counter turned face down. My mail. I moved toward it. Marla stepped in front of me. Those documents are part of an active preservation review. I looked at her, then at the stack behind her. That was the second crack. Not the map, not the fake notices. The mail. You've been getting my mail here? No answer. Dean shifted his weight. Marla's silence was more useful than anything she could have said. I closed the black folder and tucked it under my arm. You both made one mistake, I said. Marla lifted her chin. And what would that be? You thought the mountain was empty because I wasn't standing on it. For the first time, her calm slipped. Just a hairline fracture. Then she said, If you interfere with this caretaker arrangement, Caleb, you will force the board to escalate. I looked past her at the red words on the map, Phase 1 Ridge Acquisition, and I finally understood. Dean was not living in my mountain house because Marla wanted to protect it. He was living there because they were trying to take it. My first instinct was ugly and simple. Throw Dean off the porch. Tear that map from the wall. Call Sheriff Owen Rusk and stand in the driveway until somebody put handcuffs on the 2 people breathing warm air inside my father's house. But I had spent too many years watching land disputes turn on the worst 10 seconds of a man's temper. So I looked up. There was a camera tucked under the porch beam. A second one sat above the new keypad lock angled toward my face. Dean's phone was half visible in the front window, black lens pointed at me from behind the curtain. Marla had built a stage and she was waiting for me to perform. You're recording, I said. Marla's expression stayed smooth. For safety. No, I said. For editing. Dean's jaw tightened. I slid the black folder under my arm and stepped back toward the door. Every inch of me wanted to stay. Every memory in that house pulled at me. My father's lake map, my mother's photograph, the smell of cedar under old smoke. But staying angry was exactly what Marla needed. She followed me onto the porch. I strongly recommend you leave until the board can schedule a review, she said. You are not authorized to disrupt an active preservation arrangement. I turned at the bottom step. You keep saying board like it turns theft into policy. That finally touched something real in her. Her eyes narrowed. Careful, Caleb. No. You be careful. Dean stepped forward. Don't threaten my wife. I looked at him, still in that flannel jacket, still standing where my father used to split kindling before sunrise. That jacket comes off before I come back, I said. Dean looked down again, and Marla's face hardened. I walked to my truck without another word. Behind me, Marla said, If you escalate this, the association will protect itself. I opened the driver's door and looked back at the house. Enjoy the heat while you can. Then I got in, started the engine, and backed down the snowy track slow enough for both cameras to watch me leave. At the first curve below the ridge, I stopped. Not long, just enough to write down the time, the vehicles, the new lock, the cameras, and the exact words Marla used. Unattended hazard, caretaker occupancy, community-protected property. Words matter. People like Marla hide inside them. Then I drove down toward the valley. Halfway down, the road narrowed between two granite shoulders where my father had once chained off access during hunting season. I remembered him standing there in a canvas coat, tightening the lock with hands cracked from winter work. The house keeps you dry, he had told me. The road keeps you free. I had been 17 then. I thought he was talking about trespassers and drunk tourists. Now I understood he was talking about power. By the time I reached my small place in town, my anger had cooled into something sharper. I cleared the kitchen table and spread Marla's folder open under the overhead light. Page by page, date by date, signature by signature. The documents looked good from a distance. Up close, they started bleeding mistakes. One inspection report listed north deck rot on a deck my father had torn off in 2012. Another fined me for visible lake-facing debris during a month when 6 feet of snow would have buried the entire slope. 3 notices referenced certified emails sent to an address I had never used. Then I found the worst one. Failure to respond within 30 days shall constitute owner non-objection. Below that, Marla had initialed the line herself. I opened my laptop and searched the email address printed in the file. Nothing. No account history. No forwarded messages. No login tied to me anywhere. So where had the notices gone? I checked tax records next. Then county parcel records. Then old HOA correspondence from years ago. Pine Hollow had tried this before, smaller back then. Fence line letters. Visual boundary complaints. A claim that my lower drainage ditch affected their common area. My father answered every one with a survey map and a sentence written in blue ink. Not subject to Pine Hollow covenants. I found those letters in a metal file box under my desk. I read my father's handwriting 3 times. Not subject. The phrase hit like a hammer. Marla's entire folder depended on one claim. That Pine Hollow had authority over my ridge. If that claim failed, everything after it failed too. I scanned every page of her folder, then photographed the folder itself, the map title, the signature pages, even the paperclip positions. I made 3 digital copies before I touched anything again. At 11:38 that night, I called the county records office line and left a message for Denise Harrow, the clerk who had helped my father years earlier. "This is Caleb Mercer," I said. "I need the recorded plat for my mountain parcel and every boundary request Pine Hollow Estates has filed in the last 5 years." I hung up, then looked at the black folder on the table. Marla thought I had left because I was scared. She had it backward. I left because the house might not be the thing she forgot to steal. By 8 the next morning, Denise Harrow called me back. Her voice was dry, clipped, County office tired. Caleb Mercer? Yes, ma'am. You asked for the Pine Hollow boundary filings and the recorded plat for your ridge parcel. I did. There was a pause. Paper moved on her end. Then she said, "You may want to come in." That was all. 20 minutes later, I was standing at the county records counter with Marla's black folder under my arm and my father's old blue ink letters in a manila envelope. Denise was behind the glass, gray hair pinned back, reading glasses low on her nose. She had known my father. Most people in that office had. She slid a large plat map across the counter. "Recorded 1987, she said. "Mercer Mountain parcel. 43 acres. House site, lake trail, timber strip, and private access road." Her finger tapped the lower edge of the map. "Pine Hollow Estates starts here. 600 feet below my lower fence line. Not close, not blurry, not debatable." I stared at the line. Denise watched me carefully. "Your property was never incorporated into Pine Hollow Estates. No covenants attached. No HOA maintenance agreement. No recorded easement from your father to that association." I opened Marla's folder and placed her emergency preservation notice beside the county map. "This says they classified my house as a community-facing hazard property." Denise looked at it for 3 seconds and gave the kind of expression clerks get when they have seen stupid people use expensive paper. "That phrase is not in the county record." I placed the caretaker authorization beside it. "This let Dean Whitcomb live there." Denise read the title, then looked up at me. "Dean Whitcomb, as in Marla Whitcomb's husband?" "Yes." Her face changed. Not surprise. Recognition. She turned to her computer and began typing. Fast. Her lips tightened with each search. "Denise?" "1 second." She printed 3 pages, then another 2. The machine behind her spit them out warm. She gathered them, stamped each one with a certified copy mark, and slid them across to me. "Pine Hollow submitted 3 boundary clarification requests in the last 2 years, she said. "All involving your ridge, all denied." I looked at the first page. Request: Community Impact Boundary Review. Applicant: Marla Whitcomb, Pine Hollow Estates, HOA. Denied. Parcel outside recorded subdivision. No authority shown. The second was worse. Request: Ridge Access Inclusion Evaluation. Denied. No deeded easement. No covenant attachment. Private road. The third made my hand go still. Request: Northern Slope Development Compatibility Review. Denied. Private mountain parcel. No HOA standing. I looked up slowly. She knew. Denise did not soften it. She was told in writing. The black folder on the counter suddenly felt heavier. Every fake notice, every fine, every line about community preservation, all of it came after the county had already said no. Denise leaned closer. "Caleb, I don't give legal advice, but if someone is occupying your property based on those documents, you need an attorney. I have one in mind." "Good. And you need certified copies of everything. I want the full file." She nodded and started printing. While the machine worked, I opened my father's envelope and pulled out one of his old letters. Not subject to Pine Hollow covenants. He had written it years ago in blue ink, steady as fence wire. Denise glanced at it and exhaled through her nose. "Your father came in here more than once because of them." "Marla?" "Before Marla. Then after Marla." She lowered her voice. "He always said the same thing. They don't want the house first. They want the road." That line made the room feel smaller. I looked back at the plat map. The road curved from the county gravel up through timber, crossed the lower ridge, then climbed toward my house and the lake trail. One road. My road. No alternate access. Marla had built a fake claim over the house, but the map showed why she needed it. If she could make the house look abandoned, if Dean could look like a caretaker, if Pine Hollow could claim community impact, then maybe she could start dragging the road into the same lie. The printer stopped. Denise stacked the documents and pushed them through the slot. Certified plat. Denial letters. Parcel history. No HOA encumbrances. No recorded access rights. I took them carefully. For the first time since I saw smoke coming from my chimney, the weight inside my chest shifted. Not lighter, sharper. Marla had walked around my father's house like the paper made it hers. But the real paper was sitting in my hands now, and every recorded line said the same thing. She had no authority there. She never had. But a county record only told me what Marla could not do. It did not tell me what she had already done. For that, I needed Earl Maddox. Earl lived below the ridge in a low ranch house with a tin roof, 2 old horses, and a view of the lower road. He was 78, maybe older, the kind of man who looked carved out of fence posts and bad weather. He had known my father longer than I had been alive. When I pulled into his yard, he was standing beside a stock tank, breaking ice with a shovel. He looked at the certified folder in my hand and said, "Figured you'd come." That stopped me halfway out of the truck. "You knew?" "I knew smoke was coming from your chimney when it shouldn't." He leaned the shovel against the tank. "And I knew Marla Whitcomb wasn't hauling groceries up that road out of kindness." We went inside. Earl poured coffee so strong it looked like engine oil and pushed a chair toward me with his boot. I placed Denise Harrow's certified copies on his kitchen table. "County says Pine Hollow has no authority over my place," I said. Earl snorted. "Your daddy could have told you that from the grave." He tried. I just didn't listen hard enough. Earl's face softened for half a second. Then it went hard again. "Dean Whitcomb's been up there since late fall," he said. "First couple weeks, I figured maybe you hired him. Then I saw Marla ride up with him. Then I saw furniture." My hand tightened around the mug. "What furniture?" "Not old stuff. New stuff. Mattresses, curtains, office chairs, then boxes from a staging company out of Bozeman." Earl looked straight at me. "That wasn't maintenance, Caleb. That was moving in. I wrote it down. Dates, vehicles, description." Earl watched me do it and nodded once, like my father would have. "Marla bring anyone else up there?" He stood, walked to a drawer by the stove, and pulled out a folded feed store receipt. On the back were handwritten notes in pencil. I keep track of things that don't sit right. The first line read, "Black GMC, Sutter Development, November 13th, Ridge Road. 10:20 a.m. I looked up. Grant Sutter? Private developer. Smooth boots. City smile. Came up twice. Marla with him both times. Dean followed in his truck like a hired hand. The kitchen seemed to tighten around me. What were they doing? Walking your upper meadow. Taking photos toward Clearwater Lake. One of them had a drone until the wind pushed it into the trees. Earl took the receipt back and tapped one line. Second time, I heard Sutter at the gate. Said the Lakeview cabins would sell fast if the access issue got cleaned up. Access issue. There it was again. Did Marla answer? Earl's mouth flattened. She said, "The occupancy file is already in motion." For a moment, all I heard was the old refrigerator humming by the wall. The occupancy file. My father's coat. The map. Dean in the house, the notices, the fake caretaker agreement. None of it was random. They were building the story before they built the cabins. Earl reached behind him and lifted a frame from the windowsill. Inside was a faded photo of him and my father standing beside the lower ridge crossing. Younger men, both holding shovels. "Your daddy put that road in with 3 men and a borrowed grader," Earl said. "Pine Hollow folks asked him for permanent access in '94. He said no, not because he hated neighbors, because he knew once you give people a road, they start believing they own what's at the end of it." I looked at the photo. My father's hand rested on a wooden gate post, the same post still standing near the granite shoulders. Earl pointed at it. He told me once, "They can want the mountain all they like, but they still need the road." The words moved through me slow and heavy. I pulled Denise's plat map from the folder and spread it beside Earl's receipt. The road line curved up from the valley through my parcel, clean and private. No easement number, no HOA note, no shared access mark. Earl tapped the map with one thick finger. "That's what she's after." "The road?" "The road first, the ridge second, the lake view after that." He leaned back. "Dean living in your house makes it look managed. Marla's papers make it look abandoned. Sutter's money makes it worth the lie." I copied every note from the receipt. Earl signed a short witness statement while I wrote it up at his kitchen table. He did not hesitate. Before I left, he followed me onto the porch. "You going to the sheriff?" "Soon." "Lawyer?" "Today." Earl nodded toward the mountain, where the road disappeared through timber. "Good. But don't just prove the house is yours, Caleb." I looked at him. "Prove the way up is yours. That's what scares them." I drove away with Earl's signed statement on the passenger seat and my father's words beating against the inside of my skull. They still need the road. For the first time, Marla's plan looked clear, and for the first time, so did mine. Naomi Price read the file without speaking. She sat behind a scratched oak desk in a brick office above the feed store, turning pages with the slow patience of someone who had made a career out of watching arrogant people underestimate county records. Denise Harrow's certified plat lay open beside Earl Maddox's witness statement. Marla's black folder sat on the other side like a bad joke wearing letterhead. When Naomi finished, she removed her glasses. "She knew your property was outside the HOA." "Yes." "She knew there was no easement." "Yes." "She put her husband in your house anyway." "That's what it looks like." Naomi tapped the caretaker authorization with one finger. "No. That's what it says. She just tried to dress trespass up as preservation." I felt the anger rise again, but Naomi held up a hand before I could speak. "Do not go back up there angry. I wasn't planning to. You were absolutely planning to." I looked at the window. She wasn't wrong. Naomi pulled the plat closer and studied the road line. This is where she made her mistake. The house? The road. She turned the map toward me. "Your father owned the ridge road from the county gravel all the way to the house. No recorded easement. No maintenance agreement. No access covenant. Pine Hollow has no vehicle right here." I leaned forward. "Can I close it?" Carefully. That one word carried more weight than yes. Naomi took out a yellow pad. "You cannot trap anyone. You cannot block emergency access. You cannot create a dangerous condition. But you can restrict vehicle use on a private road you own if notice is clear. Foot exit remains available and the boundary is properly marked. So I post it. You survey it first, then post it, then document it, then record a formal revocation of any informal permission Pine Hollow may claim." I thought of my father's sentence in Earl's kitchen. They can want the mountain all they like, but they still need the road. Naomi slid a blank sheet toward me. We do this clean. No threats. No confrontation. No cowboy nonsense. Paper, survey, signs, cameras. Cameras? If Dean damages something, you want a record. If Marla lies, you want audio. If Grant Sutter shows up, you want proof he knew there was a title issue. Grant's name on her tongue sharpened the room. You know him? I know his type, she said. Developers don't walk ridges for exercise. By afternoon, Naomi had drafted 3 documents: notice of no HOA authority, revocation of informal access permission, and demand to vacate. She told me not to serve them yet. Why wait? Because right now Marla thinks she controls the clock. Let her keep thinking that until the road is marked. 2 days later, a survey crew climbed the lower ridge in 2 white trucks. They hammered orange stakes into frozen ground, tied bright flags to fence posts, and marked the exact point where my private road left the county gravel. One worker looked up the slope toward the pines and shook his head. Whoever told the HOA this was theirs never read a map. Or did, I said, and hoped nobody else would. The gate crew arrived the next morning. They installed the steel ranch gate between the granite shoulders where my father used to hang an old chain. Heavy posts, reinforced hinges, solar keypad, manual emergency release for law enforcement. A sign bolted to the right post read, "Private road vehicle access by written permission. Only emergency foot access remains open. Recorded owner, Caleb Mercer." Naomi reviewed the wording before the sign went up. Boring is good, she said. Boring wins. I mounted 3 cameras before sunset, one on a pine above the road, one facing the keypad, one hidden on the slope with a clear view of vehicles approaching from above. Each camera fed to cloud storage and time-stamped every movement. When the contractor tested the gate, steel rolled across the road with a low, final groan. For a second, I stood there with my hand on the cold post. This was not revenge. Not yet. This was a boundary. My father had understood that long before I did. Then I opened the gate again. The crew chief looked at me. You're leaving it open? For now. 3 days passed. Dean drove through once in the morning with supplies. Marla drove through that afternoon without slowing down. A cleaning van went up the next day and came back 2 hours later. None of them stopped to read the sign. None of them noticed the cameras. They had gotten comfortable using what was mine. On the 4th morning, my phone buzzed. Road camera. Motion detected. Dean's pickup rolled past the open gate. Groceries in the passenger seat. A box of curtains bouncing in the bed. An hour later, Marla's white SUV followed. Behind her came a black GMC with polished wheels and Sutter development plates. I watched all 3 vehicles climb toward my house. Then I opened the gate app and waited. From the turnout above Earl Maddox's pasture, I could see part of the ridge through a gap in the pines. Not the house itself, but the upper road, the bend near the rock wall, the place where every vehicle had to pass before reaching my clearing. On my phone, the cameras filled in the rest. Dean's pickup parked by my woodshed first. He unloaded grocery bags, a tool case, and the box of curtains like a man stocking a place for company. 15 minutes later, Marla's white SUV rolled up beside him. She stepped out with a folder under one arm and walked toward my porch without looking around. Grant Sutter arrived last. His black GMC stopped near the lake trail. He got out in polished boots, city coat, phone already raised. He was not looking at the house like a guest. He was looking at it like a number. I switched to the slope camera. The audio was thin but clear enough. Marla pointed toward the upper meadow. That ridge line gives you 3 premium sites if we phase it correctly. Grant turned slowly, scanning my land. And the access? Dean answered before Marla could. Handled. I felt my jaw tighten. Grant looked toward the road. Handled as in recorded? Marla's voice sharpened. Handled as in under active occupancy control. That phrase would matter later. For nearly an hour, they walked my property with clipboards and phones. Grant took photos of the lake view. Marla showed him the expansion map from my wall. Dean opened my shed and pulled out measuring stakes that did not belong to him. I did not move. Naomi had told me patience would be the hardest part. She was right. Watching strangers inventory my father's land like lumber made every muscle in my body want to climb that road. Instead, I watched the timestamps burn into the footage. At 12:43, Dean loaded tools back into his pickup. Grant shook Marla's hand. Marla smiled the way people smile when money is close. Then all three vehicles started down the mountain. That was the moment. I touched the button. Half a mile below them, the steel gate rolled across the road and locked between the granite shoulders. On camera, Dean's pickup came around the lower bend first and stopped hard. Snow kicked under his tires. He sat there a few seconds, probably trying to understand why the open road he had driven through that morning was now closed. Then he got out. He walked to the gate, read the sign, and jabbed at the keypad. Nothing happened. He pressed harder. Nothing happened again. Marla's SUV pulled up behind him. Grant stopped behind her. Marla got out angry. Not worried. Angry. Dean pointed at the sign. Marla read it once, then looked straight up toward the trees like she was searching for me. My phone rang 30 seconds later. Dean. I answered but said nothing. What the hell is this? He snapped. A gate. You locked us in. No, I said. I restricted vehicle access on my private road. You can walk down any time. You can't do that. I already did. Marla took the phone. Her voice came through cold and bright. Caleb, you are obstructing HOA business and interfering with a board-authorized preservation action. I watched her on camera as she spoke, one hand on her hip, standing in front of the sign with my name on it. My land was never in your HOA, Marla. Silence. It was short. Maybe 2 seconds. But it was the first silence she had given me since I found Dean in my house. Then she said, That is not your determination to make. No. The county already made it. Her face changed on camera. The confidence did not vanish. It tightened. You need to open this gate immediately. Dean can walk. So can you. So can Grant. Emergency foot access is open along the posted side path. Vehicle access is revoked. Grant stepped closer to Marla. I heard him through the camera, not the phone. You told me this access issue was resolved. Marla covered the receiver with her hand, but not well enough. It is, she hissed. He's bluffing. I almost smiled. No, I said into the phone. I'm documenting. Dean grabbed the phone back. Open the damn gate, Caleb. You were living in my father's house this morning, I said. Now you're standing on my father's road. Think carefully about your next move. I hung up. For 10 minutes, they argued beside the gate. Dean paced. Marla called someone. Grant stayed near his GMC, staring at the sign and then at the survey flags. He finally walked up to the post, took a photo of the recorded owner line, and stepped back like the metal had burned him. That was when the power shifted. Not because I yelled, because they had to read my name before they could leave. Marla called again. I let it ring. Then she sent a text. Open the gate before this becomes criminal. I sent one reply. It already is. On camera, Marla read it. Her face went pale with fury. Then she turned to Dean and said something I could not hear. Dean walked to his truck, opened the rear door, and pulled out a battery-powered saw. I leaned forward, thumb hovering over Naomi's contact. The mountain had gone quiet, and Dean Whitcomb was about to decide how much evidence he wanted to give me. He carried the saw like a man carrying certainty. Marla stood behind him near the white SUV, one hand pressed to her phone, the other pointing at the lock housing. Grant Sutter stayed beside his GMC, no longer taking pictures of the lake view. He was watching the survey flags now, watching the sign, watching Marla. That told me he could read risk when it had his name near it. Dean knelt at the gate and set the saw blade against the chain. I opened the camera feeds wider on my phone. 3 angles, one from the pine, one from the keypad, one from the slope looking down on all 3 vehicles. Audio was clean enough to catch Marla's voice. "Just open it," she snapped. "He has no right to interfere with board business." Grant stepped forward. "Marla, before he cuts anything, I need to know whether this road is actually recorded to the association. It is controlled through Preservation Authority." "That is not what I asked." Dean looked back. "You want out or not?" Grant did not answer. The saw screamed to life. Sparks jumped from the chain and scattered across the packed snow. Dean leaned into it, jaw clenched, shoulders stiff. The gate shook under the pressure, but the chain held longer than he expected. I hit record on my phone even though the cameras were already saving everything. Marla moved closer and pointed toward the hinge post. "Try the lower bracket." Grant said, "Don't tell him that on camera." Marla froze. Then she looked up. Not at me. At the trees. For the first time, I saw the thought cross her face. Cameras. Dean killed the saw. The sudden silence felt louder than the blade. He stood and scanned the ridge. His eyes landed near the pine camera but did not find it. My phone rang. "Marla." This time I answered. "Caleb," she said, voice tight but polished again. "Your unauthorized surveillance is escalating this situation. You're cutting my gate. You unlawfully restrained vehicles on a road used by Pine Hollow residents for decades." "No, Marla. I restricted vehicles on my private road after posting notice. You are creating a safety hazard. Emergency foot access is open. Sheriff Rusk will have the gate code in 10 minutes. That stopped her. I could see it on camera before she spoke. Her shoulders dropped a fraction. "You called Owen?" "I'm about to." "You don't want to do that." "Why?" "Because once law enforcement is involved, this becomes much more complicated for you." I looked at the live feed. Dean still held the saw. Grant was backing away from both of them. "No," I said. "It becomes documented." I hung up and called Sheriff Owen Rusk. I kept it clean, just like Naomi told me. My name, parcel number, private road, posted gate, unauthorized occupants, active property damage, cameras recording, no threat, no physical confrontation, emergency footpath open. Rusk listened without interrupting. Then he said, "Stay where you are. Do not approach them." "Yes, Sheriff. And send me the deed and the gate footage. Already sending." My next call was Naomi. She answered on the first ring. "Did they damage it?" "Dean is cutting the chain." Marla told him to open it. Grant asked if the title issue was handled. Naomi went quiet for half a second. "Send everything. Now." I sent the clips, the live camera link, Denise's certified denial letters, Earl's signed statement, and the revocation notice Naomi had drafted. Then I watched. Dean started the saw again. This time the blade bit into the lower bracket. Sparks lit his face orange. Marla kept glancing at the trees now, but she did not stop him. That was important. She had time to stop him. She chose not to. The bracket finally snapped loose on one side. The gate sagged but did not open. Dean swore and kicked the steel frame. Clear image. Clear audio. Then Grant Sutter said the sentence that turned the whole thing. I was told the title problem was already handled before I put money into this. Marla spun toward him. Grant, shut up! Too late! The slope camera caught his face. The keypad camera caught hers. The pine camera caught Dean beside the damaged gate with the saw still in his hand. I saved the clip 3 separate times. 15 minutes later, dust rose from the county road below. Sheriff Rusk's cruiser climbed toward the lower crossing, slow and steady. No siren, no drama. Just law coming up the mountain. On camera, Marla saw him and straightened her coat. Then she smiled. Even standing beside a cut gate, a private road sign, 3 survey markers, and her husband holding a saw, she still believed her paperwork would win. That was Marla's last mistake before the deed came out. Sheriff Owen Rusk stepped out of his cruiser and looked at the scene without speaking. He looked at the damaged gate first, then at the saw in Dean's hand, then at the sign bolted to the post with my name printed clean across the bottom. His eyes moved to the orange survey flags, the cut bracket, Marla's white SUV, Grant Sutter's black GMC, and finally to Marla herself. She walked toward him before he could ask a question. Sheriff, thank God, she said. This is an unlawful obstruction of a community access road. We are conducting official HOA business under Emergency Preservation Authority. Rusk did not write anything down. He just said, Put the saw down, Dean. Dean blinked. Sheriff, I was just... Put it down. Dean lowered the saw into the snow. Marla's smile tightened. There's no need to treat my husband like a suspect. He is the authorized caretaker for the property above this road. Rusk looked at her. Authorized by who? The Pine Hollow Estates Board. For property. Pine Hollow does not own? That stopped her. Only for a breath, but everyone saw it. Dean looked at her. Grant looked at the ground. Rusk turned toward the camera on the gatepost, then back to Marla. Before I came up here, I spoke with Denise Harrow at County Records. Marla's face lost color in a slow, controlled way. Rusk continued. She sent me the recorded plat. This road is part of the Mercer Mountain parcel. The house, lake trail, and timber acreage above us are not inside Pine Hollow Estates. Marla lifted the folder in her hand. Sheriff, with respect, this is a civil matter involving long-standing community impact rules. No, Rusk said. Right now I'm looking at damaged private property, unauthorized vehicle access, and a man holding a saw beside a gate he didn't own. Dean swallowed. Grant finally spoke. Sheriff, I was here for a site review. I was told all title issues had been resolved. Rusk turned slowly. By who? Grant did not answer. He did not need to. A second vehicle came up from the county road. Naomi Price parked behind the cruiser and stepped out with a document tube in one hand and a hard folder in the other. She walked straight to Rusk, not to Marla. Sheriff, she said, Naomi Price. I represent Caleb Mercer. Here are certified copies of the deed, recorded plat, parcel history, denial letters, access revocation notice, and the gate installation invoice. Rusk accepted the folder. Marla stepped forward. I object to this entire presentation. Caleb Mercer is not present, and these documents have not been reviewed by the board. Naomi looked at her for the first time. The county reviewed them before your board existed. That line landed hard. Rusk opened the plat and laid it across the hood of his cruiser. Naomi pointed to the lower boundary. Pine Hollow ends here. Caleb's lower fence is here. The road begins here. No easement. No covenant. No recorded access right. Rusk studied it, then looked at Marla. Do you have a deed, easement, or court order saying otherwise? Marla's mouth opened. No sound came out. Then her phone buzzed. Rusk's buzzed a second later. Mine did too, from the turnout where I was watching. An email from Denise Harrow. Subject: Certified Boundary Request History, Pine Hollow Estates/Mercer Parcel. Attached were the 3 denied requests. Community Impact Boundary Review, Ridge Access Inclusion Evaluation, Northern Slope Development Compatibility Review. All filed by Marla Whitcomb. All denied. All before Dean moved into my house. Naomi read them on her phone, then held the screen toward Rusk. She knew. Marla snapped, "That is not what those denials mean." Rusk looked at the dates. "They mean you were told this wasn't HOA land. They mean the county had not yet accepted our interpretation. County records don't work by interpretation." The mountain went quiet again. No saw, no shouting. Just wind moving through pine and Marla's paperwork dying in real time. Rusk turned to Dean. "Did Caleb Mercer give you permission to live in that house?" Dean looked at Marla. Rusk's voice hardened. "Don't look at her. Look at me." Dean's shoulders dropped. "Marla said the board had authority. That is not what I asked." Dean said nothing. Rusk turned to Grant. "You're free to leave on foot if you want. Your vehicle stays until we sort lawful access." Grant nodded quickly. "I'll cooperate." Marla turned on him. "Grant." He stepped away from her. "No, Marla. I asked you twice if the title problem was handled." Naomi's eyes shifted to Rusk. "That's on camera, Sheriff." Rusk looked at the damaged gate again. "I figured." Then he turned back to Dean and asked the question that cut through every fake notice, every HOA phrase, every polished lie Marla had printed. "So who gave you permission to live in that man's house?" Dean stared at the snow, and Marla Whitcomb, for the first time since I found her in my kitchen, had no paper left to hide behind. The next few hours did not look like a movie. No shouting crowd, no dramatic confession. Just Sheriff Rusk taking statements beside a bent steel gate, while Naomi Price handed over documents in clean order, and Dean Whitcomb sat on the tailgate of his pickup, with his hands folded between his knees. Marla kept trying to speak. Rusk kept stopping her. "Mrs. Whitcomb, you'll have your chance to make a statement after I finish documenting the property damage. It's an HOA matter. It stopped being an HOA matter when your husband cut a private gate. It was community access." Rusk looked at the sign, then back at her. "No, ma'am. It was posted private access. That was the first consequence. The second came when Naomi served the demand to vacate. Dean had 24 hours to remove his personal belongings from my house under sheriff supervision. No tools, no records, no removing anything that belonged to me or my father. The new locks were to be replaced. The house was to be photographed room by room. Dean did not argue. Marla did. Naomi looked at her and said, "Every word you say from here forward is either a defense or more evidence. Choose carefully." Marla finally closed her mouth. Grant Sutter left on foot down the side path with Sheriff Rusk's deputy escorting him. His GMC stayed above the gate until the next morning, when Naomi arranged a written vehicle release under protest. By then, Grant's attorney had already called mine. That was how fast money recognizes poison. 2 weeks later, Pine Hollow Estates held an emergency board meeting. I did not want to go. Naomi told me I should. "People need to see the line," she said. "Not just on the map, in the room." So I stood at the back of the clubhouse while Naomi laid the certified plat, denial letters, video stills, Earl Maddox's witness statement, and Marla's caretaker authorization across a long folding table. Residents came in angry at first. Some thought I had blocked a road they used for hiking. Some thought Marla had protected a neglected house. Then they saw the boundary line. Then they saw the 3 denied requests with Marla's name on them. Then they watched the clip of Dean cutting the gate while Grant Sutter said, "I was told the title problem was already handled." The room changed after that. Not loud. Worse for Marla. Quiet. A woman in the second row asked, "Were our dues used for those legal notices?" Nobody answered. A man near the coffee station asked, "Did the board approve your husband living in that house, or did you?" Marla stood at the front with her lips pressed tight, but the room no longer belonged to her. By the end of that night, the board voted to remove her pending investigation. 3 members resigned within a week. Pine Hollow issued written correction notices, admitting my parcel, road, lake trail, and timber acreage had never been part of the HOA. Dean was charged with trespass and property damage. Marla faced civil claims for fraudulent misrepresentation, unauthorized use of HOA resources, and conspiracy tied to the false preservation file. Grant Sutter walked away from the Ridge project so fast, his company scrubbed the proposal from its website by sunrise. Naomi told me not to celebrate, so I didn't. I went back to the mountain. Sheriff Rusk met me there while Dean removed his things under supervision. Boxes came out of my father's house. Clothes, tools, paperwork, a folding desk, a printer. 2 framed development renderings Dean tried to carry out face down until Naomi stopped him. Inside the garage, behind a stack of stolen HOA signs, I found my father's lake map rolled in brown paper. For a minute, I could not move. The paper was creased, but not ruined. My father's handwriting still marked the spring line, the old deer trail, the ridge road, and the lake outlet where he taught me how water rights worked before I understood why they mattered. I carried it inside and hung it back above the fireplace. Months passed before the house felt like mine again. I replaced the black keypad lock with a brass deadbolt. I pulled out Dean's curtains. I put my mother's lake photograph back on the mantel. The old leather chair stayed where it belonged, facing the fire. The steel gate stayed too. People asked if it was because I didn't trust Pine Hollow. That wasn't the answer. I kept it because my father was right. The house keeps you dry. The road keeps you free. One morning, after the first clean snow of winter, I stood on the porch with coffee in my father's mug and listened to the mountains settle into silence. No engines, no board notices, no strangers inside, just wind through pine, the lake below, and the low creak of old timber warming in the sun. Marla thought authority came from paper. She was half right. Paper matters. But only the real kind. The kind recorded at the county. The kind signed by owners. The kind that tells the truth when powerful people start lying. People like Marla do not always break in with crowbars. Sometimes they move in one document at a time. And sometimes, one deed is enough to move them right back out.
The lesson here is simple, and it's one a lot of folks learn hard way. Don't ignore the person word just because the problem feels personal. Caleb was angry, and he had every reason to be, but he didn't let anger make the next mistake. He checked the records, found the boundary line, listened to the people who knew the land, and let the deed speak louder than anyone's opinion. That's not sweetness, that's steadiness. In a world where some people use titles, boards, and fancy language to push back honest boundary, there is still power in staying calm, knowing what belongs to you, and standing on the truth the right way. That mountain house wasn't just walls and timber, it was memory, family, and piece of land his father had protected for a reason. And in the end, what mattered most wasn't making noise, it was preserving what was real. So let me ask you, if you come home and found someone hiding behind fake authority on your property, would you stay calm and build a case? Try yes, if you would stand your ground the right way. And if you enjoy stories about land, homes, HOA, and quiet people who don't back down when the truth is on their side, go ahead and subscribe. There are more stories like this coming.